So in this video, I'm going to tell you why Filipino students fail in algebra. This is a teacher's perspective. Now, this is just my opinion, my view of the problem. So I don't know about you or about the other teachers if they also see the same problem. I'm going to give an example, and I hope that we'll be able to generalize. I hope that you'll be able to get my point on this. So, if you're a high school student in the Philippines, you've probably heard or even used the word transpose or transposition, right? So this is a very familiar term in high school mathematics. Transposition, and you use this when you solve equations. Okay, so to give you context, say you're solving an equation and your final step is something like this. Something like, say, your final step is x minus 2 equals 0. Okay. So what you do as a student is you transpose, right? You transpose the negative 2 over to the other side and you change the sign, right? That's what transposition means, right? So what happens is the equation becomes x equals 0 plus 2 because you transposed the negative 2 to the other side. And so finally, you'll get x equals positive 2. And that will be your final answer, right? Now, this is actually correct. Okay, the final answer is correct. No problem with that. The problem is with transposition. Because there's no such thing as transposition, right? Now, what's the basis for transposition? This actually does not exist, right? This process called transposition, is not actually a mathematical process. It's just made up by, I don't know, by someone who wants to sort of simplify the problem, simplify the process, and told the students that this is what you will do. Okay, now that is wrong, and I'm going to tell you why that's wrong. So now, if this is wrong, then why do we get the correct answer when you use this sort of magical move? Okay, so now if you only know the reason why this works, then there's no reason to call it transpose or transposition. Now, the sad reality is that teachers don't explain the reason enough. And that students also don't even care enough as long as it gives them a correct answer. And that's where the problem starts. Because students view this as just a process involving solving linear or quadratic equations. And so when it comes to equations that they're not familiar with, they might think that the process is not useful in those areas. So they basically miss on the very essence of algebra. So the goal of this video is to explain why transposition is wrong and why it works. Okay, so let's go back to our equation. So what's really happening is that when you're transposing this number to the other side, what's really happening is that since you want to isolate this variable, you want to eliminate this number, right? You want to get rid of this number. Now, how do you get rid of this number? You don't put it to the other side. No, that's not how it is. What you will do instead is, I'm going to write it again. So x minus 2 equals 0. So what you will do, instead of transposing negative 2 to the other side, so what you will do instead is you add plus 2 to the left side because that will eliminate this number, the negative 2. That will cancel out. Negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. And then so since you added a 2 on the left side, you're also going to add 2 on the right side. Okay? And so what happens is these things cancel out and you are left with x equals 2. And that is the final answer. So here, we did not invoke anything thing, any process called transpose, we did not transfer any number to the right side of the equation. What we did was just a natural thing to do, and that's to eliminate the negative 2. And how do you eliminate negative 2? You add positive 2, because negative 2 plus 2 is 0. And then whatever you add on the left side, you also do that on the right side. So that's what happens when you sort of transpose a number to the other side. There's no such thing. There's no such process. Okay, so now that you know how it works, then there's no reason to call it transpose, right? It's just a natural algebraic move. And if there's a proper name for it, it's called the addition property of equality. Okay, we call that APE, right? The addition property of equality. So that's what's at work here. There's no such thing as transpose. So if you're a student learning algebra and doesn't even know this, then you probably will develop bad habits. You probably will develop misconceptions. You probably will develop false notions about algebra, about how algebra works. Okay, and so this is the reason why students fail in algebra, right? So it's because of these misconceptions that occur in their minds and not corrected by teachers. That's the culprit. Okay, the reason why they fail, they hate algebra. Okay, so the challenge to all teachers out there is to teach them the proper way, the proper ways of solving, the proper terminologies to use, right? Because in fact, even the FOIL method is kind of, it's kind of spooky. Okay, the FOIL method it's good. It simplifies the process, but it's spooky. It's just like transpose. It doesn't tell you why it works. So, for example, if I let me erase this one. So let's do some FOIL method here. Let's say I have x minus 2 times x plus 1. So what you'll do with FOIL method is you sort of, okay, so this is what FOIL means, right? FOIL. So F stands for first. So you multiply the first terms, right? Okay, so that's x times x, that's x squared. And then the outer, that's x times 1, which is plus x. And then the inner, negative 2 times x is negative 2x. And then the last terms, so negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And then you simplify, right? So that's how FOIL method works. This is minus x minus 2. So this is how FOIL method works. And it's spooky, right? Yeah, it works. It gives you the correct answer, but it doesn't tell you why. Okay? So the better process that should be done, okay, for these kinds of problems is to use what we call the distributive property, right? So what you do with distributive property is, so let me write that again. So what you do with distributive property is you distribute this factor over to the terms in your second factor. Okay, so what will happen is that becomes x minus 2 times x, right, plus x minus 2 times 1. Okay, so you distribute the first factor to the terms of the second factor, and then you simplify. Okay, you distribute these terms, right? So that's x squared minus 2x plus x minus 2. And that's the same thing as this, right? But this is a better way because students know the process. They know what's going on. Okay? And so when they know what's going on, then they'll be able to appreciate the process. They'll be able to appreciate algebra itself. Instead of saying, okay, it's the FOIL method that's working. Well, what is the FOIL method? How does the FOIL method work? Well, we don't know. As long as it works, that's okay. Well, that's not okay. And that's one of the reasons why students fail to see the beauty in algebra. Okay? So that's all I wanted to say in this video. Thank you for watching this.